Tonight in this very great conversation by two of the most dynamic Black women on the planet Earth. One is Dr. Georgeanne Thomas. She is professor um, of humanities at Clark Atlanta University, a dynamic scholar, one of our most renowned and most profound professors. And she just recently finished The Coming and said that she absolutely, positively wanted and needed to be in and to be part of this discussion, of part of this conversation. There's another a wonderful scholar who's going to join us any second now, named Dr. Gloria Tinubu, and she is a retired professor from Spelman College, who is an economist, a brilliant thinker, and an Afrocentric Black woman who absolutely loves our history and has a heart for reconnecting to our past, especially, particularly ancestors and the unnamed. She has a real heart for the unnamed, the dismissed, those ancestors who gave their lives for us, and yet we might never have called their names. So she too just recently read The Coming, Ellen. And so both of these ladies are ready, raring to go. These are thinkers, these are scholars, these are philosophers. And so it's just a joy, 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 and an absolute unmitigated pleasure to be here. And Ellen, I want to thank you because, of course, you coordinated all of this. You put out a call for us to talk about The Coming, not just to read it, but to actually talk about it, to put this in conversation in homes in America, because this book really, I think, has the power to to heal and to resurrect, to really connect us in ways that we might not have been connected before. And of course, I'm going to talk as the night goes on about the book and how it works and how I put it together and what makes this happen, what makes that happen. But I just first wanted to say thank you to you amazing, you priceless Black women for setting the stage for this amazing, amazing, amazing event.
Thank you so much. It
Thank you.
is really a pleasure to have you both here and also to talk about your book. Um, those out there that are listening, folks that are in our book group, I do want to say this until she comes on, is that when we read the book, there need to be, in our words, some kind of cautious to let us know that we must be cautious going in, because I had no idea.
Wow.
I needed my napkins.
Wow.
I needed
Yes.
a whole bunch of
Yes.
stuff because
Yes.
I did not
Yes.
understand
Yes.
that this could happen. And she's coming now. She's
Yes.
in.
Oh, yes.
It just really blew my mind.
Yes.
I wasn't ready. I'll just tell you, I
Wow.
wasn't ready for this. And we'll talk more, as you said, about the book. I just felt like you was in the boat
Wow.
on somebody's door against somewhere somehow. How did you get this information? Because in our history, they never tell us about this. All we know
Never.
is they were chained and they were on the
That's
boat
right.
or
Yes.
ship, and then they
Yes.
were over. But the things that it made me just see how each day, each night, as they spoke about things that happened. And I did have to close my eyes at time. I did have to close the book.
Yes.
So I'm
Yes.
gonna leave way for you to introduce the next guest. She's here
Yes.
now.
Yes, our next guest, who is a mighty powerhouse of a spirit. Her name is Dr. Gloria Tenebu, and she is a retired professor from Spelman College. She is a national economist.
Yes.
She's a thinker, she's a spiritualist, she's a keeper of our ancestors' hearts. And I'm just so grateful for this very great scholar who, too, just recently read The Coming. And when I asked these two ladies if they would be willing, if they would not find it robbery to spend some of their time with me on this evening to talk about this book, they both just jumped at the opportunity and were so enthusiastic about it. So I'm telling you right now, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, get ready. Get ready, get ready, and it's just going to be an amazing, amazing time because, clearly, the coming is more than just a book. It's an ancestral praise song,
Mhm.
you know, in so many, many, many ways. But anyway, Dr. Tinubu, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are so glad to have you. We really are.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And again, can I say, I'm just glad to be on a panel of Black women. I just think that's phenomenal. I do. I think that's absolutely phenomenal. I think that's absolutely great. Um, so Ellen, how do we want to start?
I want you to, you were going to do a reading, but
Yes.
folks hasn't came. I don't know. I mean,
It's a little early.
yeah, it's a little
You know what
early.
we
I
can
don't
do?
want them to miss it, but I
That's
do
right.
want to talk about some things with you.
Yeah. So
Also,
let's do this. Let's ask these two ladies here just what was their initial reaction to the book?
yes,
They were
yes.
reading. Yeah, as y'all were reading it, and when you finished it, like what was your initial reaction? Dr. Thomas, why don't you go first?
Listen, I wrote you my initial reaction. Let me tell you, people. I'm sorry. I should have memorized the person's name, but let me just say back to you. Let me say back to you and to all of you. I was not ready to. I sat down to read the book. I crossed my legs. I said, I'm gonna read Danny's book, and I'm telling you, I was not ready for what came across those pages.
Wow.
How can he evoke images, as I wrote, that jump into your heart
Yes.
and make your heart shudder in your own house? You're looking around in your own house, in the safety of your house. You're looking around for somebody to come from one of those places to say, Georgeanne, I'm watching you. I call their names. And then I look around and say, I know they're in here with me. How did he get in the bowels of the ship and talk to these people? And how did they tell him? How did he transcend time, go back, get the information, and bring it back to us? I just need to know that part. He just tell me that part. The rest of it is easy. I got the rest of it. But if he could just tell me how he got in the bowels of the ship, talk to everybody, and brought it back. Dr. Tenebu, can you just help me? Somebody help me.
That's the thing, right? That's the thing. That was the magic, the mystery, the mysticism, the spirituality, the connection, the embodiment of all that was and still is. It was like he transcended time. He was there. Like you said, he was there.
He was there. He was there.
He was there
and
in the ship. He was on the action block.
Yes.
He was in the bodies of men and women and children and babies. You could feel all of it.
Did you look around your room? Did everybody look around the room and look for somebody? Because I know somebody came off the page. I know you did.
Yes.
No, you know what I did was I looked inside and I thank God.
Oh, yes.
For his ability, Daniel's ability to capture the spirit of our ancestors, because I told him how I struggled with the fact that so many of our ancestors are unnamed and unknown. He gave them names. He gave them tribes. He gave them purpose. He gave them meaning. He gave them life. He brought them to life. And
they came and spoke back to us.
Yes.
They spoke to us. You know, I found me somebody. I told him I was the female. Who did I tell you, Dad? I was the female.
Atiba.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Because I would have been the charming. I would have been looking at them saying, "This is what y'all want. I got that for you." And you would have bought me. You would have had me sit in the back of the wagon because you trusted me, because I would have gained your trust. And then, Lord have mercy. I'm sorry, Lord. Let me just.
Well, I tell you what, ladies, and Daniel, I tell you what, my character that gave me strength, and I hope I say her name right, Amanita.
Aminata.
You and Gloria.
That's me.
Gloria said it too.
That's me.
I said that when she gave that, she did not allow her captor to make her die.
Yeah.
Right.
She did not. She said, I will not die. Yes. Whatever you do to me, I don't care. You didn't kill me. I willed myself.
Yeah.
Live in the present. And I just seen that. And she you know, I don't want to give it all away, but when she mentioned she were warriors,
Yes.
Yeah.
I felt like Wakanda.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
And
yes.
you know,
Oh, like
Yes.
it was that
Yes.
it was that sister, Aminata,
Yes.
Yes.
that encouraged me to write. I've written an Oriki, which is a praise song
Yes.
for my brother.
Wow.
Have you already?
It's not a song because I can't sing, but it's a
Ricky, we got it.
they're words of praise, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I want to share that with you. This is what my version of Aminata. Daniel Black, Omotosho, Jojomani, a warrior worthy of honor, a child worthy of care by his great-great-grandmother, Yeye Stella Swinton, who inspired him to write stories that would transform and uplift humanity. A son of Africa born in Blackwell in Conway County, Arkansas, nationally renowned award-winning novelist, taught by poet laureate Sonia Sanchez, praised by Pulitzer Prize-winning author Alice Walker, professor of African American Studies and English at his alma mater, Clark Atlanta University, founder of the Ndugu Nzinga Rites of Passage Nation, a mentoring society for African American youth. Ashe, my brother, warrior.
Ashe. Woo, you wrote that thing, Gloria. I need it on parchment.
Yes, you wrote that thing. That's what I wanted to tell you. I wanted to tell you that, Daniel, you wrote that, and I got the book, but I had to get the audio. And I normally don't get audios, and that person's voice, I thought it was yours, because I wanted to hear those names. I didn't give it its justice in hearing those names.
Oh, yeah.
And so to get that, I told people, I recommend you to get the audio if you don't know the words, but I'm not telling you that you can't read without it. I'm just telling you I couldn't. And as I heard the word, it was very poetic. There was a lot of rhythm that I wanted to capture. That's why I said, let me get the audio, because I wanted to hear the stanza of the rhythm of the beats, the drums, everything they were singing and talking about. And I was like, you go, Daniel, you go.
Ellen, can you hear the music, Ellen? It was musical. It was musical. I heard the music. The music floating
the
through
drums.
all the lyrics. Not only the drums, I heard the music of the lyrics of the words. His words were rhythmic to me. I mean, I could see that if the KRS ones, the old rappers would rap this word. The new rappers don't understand it, but the old rappers could rap this first page, the second page. It was a rhythm in the words. And then when I talked with my sister Tenebu, she said, "Did you hear the drums?" I heard the drum. It was the underline. The drums are just dum 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 dum. I mean, it just pushed you through. I mean, I was crying. I didn't know when to stop crying. I had to say, I got to read this book. You can't be crying. I said, wait a minute. I can't. I don't know. I'm gonna stop because I just think that first, every PWI and every HBCU need to have this in the history department.
Yes.
No. Every person, white and black, of every color. Because they've got to, not just
all the schools, just all the schools and universities and colleges. I want them to have it on their reading list. Go ahead, Gloria.
Oh, yes, because this is not just about us. This is about everybody. It's about them.
Yes.
You know, they need to see themselves as much as we see ourselves.
Yes.
We are our ancestors. They are their ancestors.
Yes. And that's why I wanted in all the universities, all of them. I said PWI, but in all of them.
Wow.
Daniel, before you read, we have folks here. So we do have folks out there and they looking. But before you read, I wanted to ask you this question. Dr. Thomas, Dr. Gloria, I'm sorry if I messed your names up. I wanted to ask you this, all of you guys, and especially Daniel. When I first read this book and I open it up and I see a generation, I see our heritage, and I see all these things, what made me think of, I'm not trying to offend our world, our people, our culture, But reading your book, Daniel, it made me embrace this culture, because I think that the generation now, what we stand for as Black, is very shameful to me. It's very shameful what we call ourselves, standing as Black, for what we do to our people, ourselves, and how we say we Black and we proud. But this heritage is what I embrace. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is worth being proud of. And I hope I didn't step on nobody's toes or anything like that. This is what I embraced. What our Black culture, the beginning and the culture and what they believe in, the spirit, the love, and this is what I embrace, not what I see today. And that's like a question to you and to you guys, and then you can read from there.
You know, I think I would say two things. One of those things that I would say is, for a lot of our young people in America, our Black kids, they embrace trash because they've not been given their wealth.
Right.
Right. If they'd been given their wealth, they would embrace that. You know, I taught at Clark Atlanta University now for almost 30 years. And when I teach this history, kids eat it up. You know, Dr. Thomas, kids absolutely eat it up. The problem is the culture hasn't given it to them, right? The other thing is, our children are doing some amazing, amazing things. Even hip hop, which is it's an amazing, amazing form, which is unbelievably creative, and it's really, hip hop is really a branch of the African tree.
Yes.
Right. But see, we're going to have to teach how rhythm, polyrhythms,
Yes.
how cacophony in music, right, etc., is an old African tradition.
Yes.
Right. Hip hop is not new. It's just a new manifestation of an old thing. Right. But the thing I'm really saying is, I have really discovered over the years that if you'll teach the young people, they'll take it.
Yes, they will.
Yes.
They'll take it, but you have to teach it. I have to mention Dr. Janice Liddell, who's on here right now listening to us. And Dr. Liddell says, hey, Dr. Tenebu and
Hi.
Hey.
And the reason I mention her is because when I was an undergrad at Clark 30-something years ago, she taught African-American literature. And Dr. Liddell taught me ideas and concepts of Africa and African people that made me so excited and that made me so proud of being Black. But I had taken literature courses all my life. But I had not learned the things she was talking, like the ability to find call and response, right? In the text. You know what I mean? And those kinds of things. And it was really, really, really a joy to really learn about myself. But see, learning about the self is a very deliberate act.
It is.
And until somebody, listen, first of all, most of our children are misnamed. We're calling our children the names of our oppressors. So we're actually starting them off on the wrong foot. Right? That's our own issue. Right? And I won't get into a whole lot of that right now. But the part I will say simply is that for me, our children have embraced what America has given them.
Yes.
I'm waiting for Dr. Gloria.
Yes, I knew as a young girl that I wanted for my children to be able to trace their heritage, because I couldn't do that on my side of the family, but I wanted them to be able to trace their heritage, right? To be able to know that history. Sure. I was taught some of that history in high school by my 10th grade teacher, who insisted on, instead of teaching us what the school system said that we should learn, she taught us about our African history and our African American history.
Yes.
So I was determined that my children would have that. So I married a man from Africa, Nigeria. And our children all have Yoruba names, and their names have meaning.
Yes, yes.
And so they've been exposed to some of the culture, but most of our children have not been, and we can't blame them for that.
That's right.
We can only blame ourselves and a system that was designed to oppress and suppress everything about us and our culture. So we know what we have to do.
That's right.
We just have to do what you do, my brother.
That's right. That's right.
We just have to teach them.
That's right.
And keep teaching them and institutionalize it in a way that they won't lose it, and it'll be able to get to them universally with technology. There's no reason why we couldn't have this being communicated all over the planet right now.
Right. That's right. That's right.
And people accessing it and getting information. And that's on us to do. And
Right.
and we shall do it for as long as we're able to do it. We'll put in a system in place that the next generation will do the same. We must institutionalize it.
That's right. That's right. Dr. Thomas.
But we have not, I'm with you. We have not because we ask not, we have not because we know not. You see, in the system where I grew up, I came to Spelman probably the most proper white girl you could meet. And so I didn't know, I didn't get, I got their history. And so to that end, Dr. Black's classes, my classes, and a few other teachers like us, professors like us, people pack themselves into our classes because this is what we teach. And when they leave our classes, 10 years from now, they say how much they have learned and how much they learned. It's number one. Let me say number two, the name calling, the name. I tell my students, and you can put this on a t-shirt, that quit laughing at our first names, because it was no laughing matter how we got our last names. Quit laughing at our first names, because there's no laughing matter how we got our last names. And I think that some of our first names are reflective of what the DNA is carrying,
That's
but
right.
doesn't know how to get back to it.
That's right.
You
That's
see,
right.
so I think that, and then in your book, one person said, what are their names, talking about the pale people? Their names what do their names mean?
Yeah.
They wanted to know, what did the names mean? Because they could not be doing all these things. Let's find out what their names mean, because their names must mean that they can do this.
That's right.
That was profound. That was deep right there.
That
Leave you
was.
on that one.
That was deep.
So I'm gonna read from the text. I'm gonna read an excerpt, and then we'll get into some of the details of how the book works and talk some
We get a
specifics.
page number.
Don't read along. Don't read along. Just let me just jump around.
But I got notes all over mine.
And I'm reading from the manuscript.
Oh, Lord.
Okay. And then came the disaster. With open arms, we embraced those who looked nothing like us, assuming all life honors life. But we were wrong. In the end, we fed and strengthened our own captors. We cannot claim naivete. We cannot say we were people undeveloped. We cannot say there were no signs. We can say only that we did not heed them. Sound wisdom was as common to us as the evening breeze. We scoffed and shrugged at elders' forewarning of a time of great tragedy and chaos. We did not believe them. We had learned to ignore our own gods, to take their goodness for granted, to believe that because of them, we were immune to external attack. So we did not hear them. We heard only the parts we sought to hear. But now we hear it all, echoing in our regretful memories. If only we could have seen into the future, we might have avoided this enslavement. But most of us had no such powers. The few who did, the seers and sages, we dismissed. They were always speaking of things to come, warning of impending disasters that rarely came to pass, at least in our lifetime. But now we know that prophecies come to one generation, but materialize in the next. If only we had listened, if only we had had more disciplined ears. But we did not. And so we blamed ourselves, we blamed our gods, we blamed each other. But there was no one to blame, only shame to bear. And pity, yes, great pity, that a people so strong missed so many clues. The forest whispered it, the birds chirped it, the trees waved it, the antelope danced it, the tall grass swayed it, the lions roared it, the elders said it over and over. Beware, seek not the thing you do not need. Greed destroys wisdom. Let just enough be enough. We were too blessed. Our abundance suggested immortality, so we stopped searching for invisible things. Our mothers had worked so hard that we didn't have to. Our fathers had killed enough game that their sons hardly even knew the hunt. We didn't know then what we know now. A life of leisure destroys a child. When there's nothing to work for, there's nothing to gain, nothing to die for. So we had to die that we might live again. And that's what we did. We died. By the thousands and hundreds of thousands we died. We'd never seen such unjustifiable violence, bloody bodies laying prostrate across the earth as if pleading for forgiveness. Those who survived did not mourn. There was no time. The loss was too great. We still have not mourned. We still have no time. We remember, yes, but we have not mourned. And so death came quickly. It came unannounced. It came cloaked in our own garb. It came white as clouds. It came in the darkness of night. It came in legions with guns and ammunition too powerful to battle. Death came like the monsoon winds. It came like a flood. It came with earth-shaking force we could not control. It came under the authority of nations we did not know. It came with men whose absent wives benefited from their husbands' despicable behavior. It came to strip the land of its glory. It came to thousands and hundreds of thousands without sympathy for our loss. Death came with impaled violence, children's blood-soaked bodies laying scattered about the earth, fertilizing dry soil. In essence, death came to teach us that we were brothers. This was the coming. Some were taken by surprise. Some were killed on the spot. Some were taken in their sleep. Some were ambushed in the forest. Some were tricked into believing they were going for a walk. Some, consumed with hatred, were caught off guard. Some were inebriated. Some were nursing wounds inflicted by spouses. Some were telling children bedtime stories of talking spiders. Some were beating drums to warn others. But most of us were not listening. So when the drums fell silent, it was too late. Our destruction was complete. An entire village raised in one solitary cycle of the sun and moon. They destroyed our homes and forced our leaving. They bound us with chains of heavy iron. Elders rendered mute and lifeless. Babies deprived of life's knowing. All we could do was wonder. We did not speak. There was nothing to say. In those moments, we heard our elders' warnings and we understood. We knew they loved us now far more than we understood before. But they could not hear our cries, our pleas of lament, not with the ears of the living. So one by one, they took us away. They took the farmers first, those who knew the land, the earth, the ingredients of the soil, those who heard its rumble, felt its movement, understand its seasons, those who knew seeds and germination, plant spacing and harvest, those who walked bare feet upon the soil in homage to its life-sustaining power. They took them first. It was no accident. They would farm again in a new world, feeding a nation committed to their degradation. And then they took the healers. They were not hard to find. Most days they lingered about the village, repairing bodies and minds too troubled to heal alone. They had learned from us the value of our healers. They knew that without them we were weak, vulnerable people. If they took our healers, they must have assumed they took our ability to mend. And they were right. So they captured our healers, that we might not rebound. Villages of frightened, wounded people without medicine men and women would take centuries to restore. But they knew this. Their strategy was as calculated as the hyena's attack. Without shaman, who would usher life back into our suffering souls? Who would reassure us that death had not come to stay? And after the healers, they took the Jali, that our stories might not be told. And after them, the warriors, that our collective strength might be diminished. Then they bound the artists who told us that we were beautiful. They chained and muted orators and teachers to stop the flow of inspiration and to abort the belief that we too were gods. They murdered gatekeepers on the spot, since at their word multitudes of ancestors would have come. And they would have come, but they were never called. And finally, they slaughtered those whose gifts were less visible, although to us no less valuable. Keepers of knowledge, masters of the spirit, gurus of assistance, guardians of order and balance. In the end, they stole away everyone and everything that made us strong. But it was all because when we sounded the drum, we were not listening. This was the coming. Our humming started in the midst of a cool, even pace when beats were slow and lulling. A man purred a dark melody. And then repeated it. It wasn't a groan from pain and desolation, but deliberate lines of constructed meter and time that jarred our spirits and invited our participation. So one by one, we joined in, some in upper registers, some in the depths of the voice, having found a language that needed no words. We hummed until we knew we'd survive. We hummed until we released mothers and fathers whom we'd never see again. We hummed our love for and gratitude to each other. For living, for fighting, for refusing to die, for enduring when giving up would have been so much easier, for still believing against all odds that we'd get home someday. We hummed. In the darkness of the night, in the blackness of the belly of that ship, we hummed. We hummed our commitment to raise children wherever we went in the way of our people. We hummed that our women slightly above might know we had not forgotten them. We hummed for the dead lying next to us. We hummed, hey, for children not yet born. We hummed for children born but left behind. We hummed our understanding that we were no longer enemies. The evening and the morning were the 14th day. Whew. Let me stop there because.
Woo! Oh my goodness. That's the way we felt. We all felt that way. Everybody that I know that's in my group, we felt all of this, just like you saying it. My question to you, Daniel, where did you get this? I was wondering if I was like, you know, just putting these words together, and I knew I've never read anything like this before, in these words, in these beats, in these lyrics. Like Gloria said, if I may, being in the bowels of the ship.
Yes.
Do tell us about the backdrop and where this all this come from.
Well, I actually was in the middle of another book when this book came to me. And unlike other times when characters begin to talk to me, which is kind of my process, this time I heard water. Water was the first thing I heard. And I realized that water is a character in this book. The ocean itself is actually a being.
Yes, it is.
Great mother, great mother.
Yes.
And so I heard water, and I kind of wondered what this was, and I sat down for a day, and the first couple of pages came to me. Now, I researched the Middle Passage probably for 15 years or so. When I was in grad school, it was one of my areas of research. So I read slave documents, I read slave narratives, I read captors' narratives, I read maritime history. I did so much reading around the Middle Passage because then and now I'm flabbergasted, and I'm intrigued that our ancestors were able to endure something of this nature and still live. You know, so the Middle Passage for me is a moment of such glory and such triumph and such achievement for African people that I wanted to write about it in an academic way. I didn't know it was going to come to me in this creative kind of way. But I realized once I started writing it that I think I had been chosen to deliver this book for a couple of reasons. One, as I said, I researched it for 15 or 20 years at the time I was writing it. The second reason I believe I might have gotten chosen for this is because I do write and I'm musical. And the music is in the text. You know, my aim, I hope, my aim is that the rhythm of the language, the rhythm of the sentences themselves moves like the boat.
Yes.
Right?
It does.
And in fact, my prayer is that when people read the book, it forces them onto the boat.
Yes.
Right? I don't want you to
Oh
be a
yeah, you have no
spectator.
choice.
Yeah,
Yes.
You have no
which
choice.
is why I use these short sentences, but they're rhythmic.
Yes.
You know, death came quickly, it came unannounced. It came, and so again, I'm trying to make the language do what I imagined the water was doing.
Yes.
Right?
You did that.
Well, amen, amen, amen. I received that. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It was a lot of work.
Ooh.
The other thing that I'll say at this point is the other reason I think that I may have gotten chosen to deliver this book is because I've grown into, not always been, but I've grown into a young man who loves my own authenticity. What I mean by that is this time when the story of the Middle Passage was told, one of the things I wanted to do was tell the whole story. Meaning, yes, women were raped. Men were too, though. See, you got to tell both stories to really understand the magnitude of the impact of this experience on African people. And there are very few places in our history where people talk about the rape of men. Right? That's enormously important. That's enormously important, I think, even in terms of shaping how Black men understand sex and sexuality. Right? I think that's extremely important. The other thing I think that's extremely important is, a white woman who read The Coming, she said, it was a beautiful book. Thank you for it. And she said, I'm so glad to know more about your history. I said, no, ma'am, this is your history.
Your history.
And she kind of froze. She kind of froze. And I said, well, I'm going to tell you 2 reasons your history. Number one, there are as many white people on this boat as Black people. They're just in another part of the ship. The second reason is your people own the Middle Passage. These are your boats. These are your boats.
And these are your husbands and brothers and fathers.
And your ancestors.
These your ancestors. Absolutely. 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 One of the things, though, that I wanted to do was to show how African people created ancestors on the boat. Like, one thing for me that no one's ever really spoken about, and that is, people talk often about the jettisoning of African folks during the Middle Passage, those who jumped overboard. And it certainly happened. And many people say, well, of course, that was a horrible thing. That was a terrible thing. But I want to introduce that from a new perspective in this book. And that is, I believe that there are some people who jumped overboard, not because they hated what was happening to them on the ship, but jumped overboard in order to become immediately ancestral. Because in the ancestral realm, they can help their people out far greater and far more. Remember, most of these folks are West African, and they come from places who knew and understood the power of an ancestor. And some of them chose not to die, but to become ancestral. Which is what I think, and I'm diverting, but somebody's good, which is what I think Jesus did. We sing that song that, he would not come down from the cross. Right? In other words, Jesus chose to become ancestral because in being ancestral, he'd have more power. But I'm saying African people did that also. Right? And the last thing that I want to say is, I think also being one, not only who loves to write, I was an English major at undergrad, and I did African American literature on the graduate level. I think that was important too here, because we needed the subjects and verbs to agree in this story. See, I wanted to tell a beautiful story, but I also wanted to tell it beautifully. And see, because telling it beautifully honors the tongues of my people. Right? And so so that's where I'm going to start. That I think ancestors chose me for this book, because I think there are many people who talked about the Middle Passage, but they left out the rape of men. They left out the names. See, this book is full of not cargo, not cargo, human beings. But human beings have names. I've never met human beings without them.
But you humanized that.
That's right.
Because every time we talked about the Middle Passage, there were no names. It was just the human, the passage.
That's right.
But
That's
you
right.
gave names and depth and character.
That's
and
right.
So, Ellen, are we able to ask questions?
Absolutely. Please,
okay,
go for it.
Okay, so I have 2 and I have one statement. I'm glad that I can now point to your book is why I teach humming in my classes.
Oh,
Because we hum.
that's right.
Because I want them to know what it means to have the humming and how you can hum people away. And I do, and I don't have anything other than what spiritually comes to me. And we hum
Yes.
Amazing Grace.
Yes.
Okay, so that's just it. Number two, I thought the way you use silence, I want to ask you the way you use silence.
Absolutely.
Silence to me served as punctuation.
That's right.
Did it? Is that
Absolutely. Absolutely it did. And I thought about that. It's funny you say this because I thought about silence in a couple of ways. There are so many folks who were taken from the motherland who did not speak the same language. And so at least initially, there must have been gaps of silence in the belly of these ships. There had to have been. Right? That's right. But what I was interested in is what is going on spiritually in the middle of those gaps. Right? And these are the places where I think we start becoming a new people. See, by the time the boat gets to America, folks are not talking about being Tiv and Ga and Serere and Anakan and Mandinka anymore. By the time the boat lands, right, we become a new people. We become we are African, absolutely. But we become a new African ethnic group. And that's very, very important to understand. Because what we'd have to then know is that those silences become part of African American vernacular.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We know how to speak through and across those silences.
Yes.
And
we know how to. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. We absolutely know how to do that. And the other thing about silence that I think is so very, very important is we had no notion of where we were going. So for the first time ever, we were headed to a future we could not envision. And so stepping into a world you had no notion about whatsoever meant a whole lot of contemplation, but no answers. And it also meant, I think, Dr. Thomas, a reconstructing of the way we understood God. Because, we were calling on Yema Yah, and folks say, well, Yema Yah wouldn't come. But the truth of the matter is, Yema Yah not only did come, but that's the only reason we arrived.
Right.
Because Yema Yah was carrying the boat.
Right.
Right. But what I am saying here is that we had to reorganize some theology because is this what God meant? Did we do something wrong? That did we really piss off God? Or are we on assignment as a people? And some of those questions did not get answered on the boat, but they certainly got asked. Yeah.
And my last thing is the wave. So I want to talk about the wave. So for me, just because you already answered part of it, the waves, there were several waves. So you had a waving of emotions up and down, up and down.
Yes.
That kept you up and down, up and down.
Yes.
Tidal wave here, a tidal wave there,
yes.
a tidal wave there.
Yeah.
But right after that wave, you had an outside wave of the ship. You brought in, there was a storm, and the ship had the same kind of waving was going on after. So it sort of ran parallel to the wave.
Right.
And then the last wave, the last thing I thought with the waving was not only was there a tidal wave of emotions on the bottom of the ship, but it was a tidal wave when you brought the storm at the top of the ship. That's
right. That's absolutely right. That's okay. And it's so funny you picked up on that because in many instances, I'm trying for the word to do what the environment is doing in the text.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it was a beast to pull it off.
Well, you did it.
Well, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I will very humbly receive that. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You did it for sure. So my two questions. One is, in part two, you talked about the fact that we learned our lesson. We learned that middle passage.
Yes.
Taught us a lesson. What was the lesson that we learned?
That the minute we stop practicing our own rituals, the minute we step away from our own cultural center as African people, chaos is on the way.
Mm.
Mm.
Mm. Mm. Mm. I'm gonna put that on. I'm gonna rub that all over me.
Chaos is on the way.
So the other question I have, there was a question that kept being repeated throughout. What did they want with us? Why do they want us? Can't they just do what they want to do themselves? Why do they need us? What's the answer to that question? Why did they want us?
You know,
Why do they need us?
I have an answer that I'm not sure I should speak over this platform, and then I have a professional answer.
Okay.
You know, and I'm going to say one thing that I really hope gets out to the entire world, and that is, they needed us because they looked at us and saw something divine.
Mm-hmm.
The anger is that they couldn't find it within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The whole point was to extract it out of us.
We're their mothers and fathers, and I thought they. Well, I won't go any further.
No, it's true. It's true. Because you know, who in the world could breastfeed the child of your enslaver and still walk like Jesus?
Mm.
And still teach your children to be respectful to that same being. See, African people brought character to this land.
Ooh.
We didn't learn character here.
No.
Oh,
no.
Goodness gracious.
We brought character to this land.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this so well as a child. There were times when white folks would mistreat my grandmother or my father, and both of them would say, take your mouth off of them. You don't do that. They would disallow me to be disrespectful, even to white folks. You know, and my father used to say, and I never really got it until I became an adult. Daddy would say, character, if you have it, don't care who you're talking to.
Wow.
Write that down.
If you have it.
Daniel, one of the things I saw in the book too, and I know we're going back and forth in different parts, but what I saw was when you talked about the days, and when you talked about the generation.
Oh, yes.
And if I counted it right, I believe there were 3 or 4 generations. And the reason why I say that is because when they talked about the older generation and talked about how did they know, you mentioned that, how did they know where we were? And it seems as a reader reading it, that it was an inside.
Sure.
It was an inside job that was done. And maybe it was this person, maybe it was that person. And then when they began to call on the gods, and they knew that something was wrong.
That's
and
right.
What was really strong to me is when you gave those days, they didn't know where they were, and it was the 100 and something day, and then the days start all over. And then when they got, the younger story was telling, he said, now we're 9 years old. So I had to think back as like, okay, you're 9 years old, and when you said 20, and I said, oh, that's a different generation, because those were older than them. And when they were there, they were little. Now at that time, those 20-year-olds, they're 20, and this generation is 9. So that's why I got start counting those generations, because they were seeing things and they were doing things.
Sure.
And another, not too many spoilers, but another one was when they were in the ship, and the white young man, how he saw, I literally cried inside myself, how he knew it was wrong. But if he defend them, he is just as no good as they are.
That's right.
And it made me see like, okay, I know that us as a culture, we are forgetting. And like you mentioned, the things and that's what I do know. My dad came from Mississippi, and he didn't raise us to hate. And I see those forgiving and those different things. And when they saw him, they began to, they didn't have that in their heart anyway during
Yes.
those times,
Yes.
even all of the abuse, but they saw something in him that they knew that he saw in the others. And I looked at that and I was like, oh my goodness, I started feeling for that young man. And I started feeling, I wonder how he feels. And I'm like, wait a minute, but you guys are being hurt, and how some of them chained together, some of them sick, some of them have strength. And then they start calling out and singing rhythms and stuff, and to let them know that we're there and stuff like that, and get the name out. So I know I said a whole bunch of stuff, but it just brought life to me about those different, I believe it was different generations. You know, best tell us about that. Were there different generations?
Sure. And even on this ship, because you know, here's this little white boy, right, who stumbles upon our ancestors and is horrified. Just horrified, like, oh my God, what is happening here? Oh my God, you know, what are my fathers doing? Right? But he's really symbolic of white supremacy. That in its infancy, it looks innocent. But it will grow up. Well, it'll grow up absolutely to enslave you. Right? And what we learn is that ultimately, white supremacy destroys white people too.
Absolutely.
Not just other people, but white folks also. And I think that's extremely, extremely, extremely important. The other thing is, if you'll notice, you know, the evening and the morning was the first day. The evening and morning is the fourth day. Evening and morning is the seventh day. Is the ninth day, the 20th day. Right? This text is a parody of the Bible. The book of Genesis. You know, the book of Genesis says the evening and the morning were the first day. The evening and morning were the second day. Because, like the book of Genesis, this story too is this is a creation story. It's the creation of a new African ethnic group in a new land. The problem is that this African ethnic group, we would struggle for years, and we still haven't settled on it in terms of what exactly to call ourselves.
Well, we never had an opportunity to call ourselves anything. They always named us.
That's true.
Right?
And that's true. And that's true. And in too many instances, we've wanted to be what our oppressor is. We wanted that so desperately, and still want it so desperately, that we measure our excellence and we measure our worth against whiteness and against white folks. Like, you know, the way we brag about Black kids going to Yale, going to Harvard. That's not an achievement. That's just a school. You know, white folks don't brag about their kids coming to Clark.
No. Say it now.
Or entering any other Black institution for that matter. You know, people say, well, you know, I had a friend of mine the other day say, well, you know, Morehouse is the Harvard of the South. I said, does Harvard call itself the Morehouse of the North?
Well, you know, I grew up in Spelman, and they told us, we said we were the Vassar of the South. I grew up in Spelman saying we were the Vassar of the South. You know, Alice Walker and all of us.
See, that could be okay if Vassar said they're the Spelman of the North.
Absolutely.
And they don't. And
they don't say that. They don't say nothing like that.
That's right.
Come on, Pablo Freire, because you done gone all over into everybody.
Because see, whiteness is our focal referent.
Yes.
It's the thing we refer to. It's the thing we compare ourselves up against. It's our hope. It's the measuring stick for us to decide whether or not we have in fact achieved in this place called America.
It's our model of humanity.
Absolutely. And in that sense, it is also our destruction. It is also, because see, we can get material gain in America as Black people. And the thing we need for material, the thing we need for Black wealth, you still won't have it. Because wealth ain't cash.
Right.
Not if you're talking about a spiritual people.
Right.
Right. And so the other thing I'll say is this notion of these hey Monty, these days counting up, right? That's important also, right? Because the days are counting until we land in a new place. Then they start counting down. The numbers go the opposite direction.
Yes, yes, yes.
Like ADBC, like Christ.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And see, once they get in the stall and now they're not in the movement of land. I mean water. Now they're on land. See, the natural elements are carrying us.
Yes.
At one point it's water, another point it's land, right? And so the natural elements are definitely carrying us. And when they get in the stall, what we learn as readers is, ooh, help me, oh God. They didn't just bring their bodies brought their gifts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The indigenous symbols and
that's
all
right.
that.
That's right. Because what makes you African is your culture. It's not the clothes you have on, although the clothes can reflect it.
Right.
Right. And so, yes, the adinkra symbols, all of that. And just the spirit, just the spiritual part of God they embody.
Yeah.
I think of Timmy Tope, who just talked incessantly. Right. But whose very breath could give people life. I think about Sister Monifa, who danced. And even after even in death, when they dragged her away, her body.
She was still dancing.
Steady dancing. Steady dancing. Constantly. I think about Binta, the mourner, the one who literally could weep and cry on other people's behalf.
Yes.
Go ahead, Dr. Thomas.
Okay, so there's a list of vocabulary words that were redefined. Did you do that?
For certain.
Because if we were to take our students and give them, if we gave them agony, sadness,
that's right.
warrior,
that's right.
ancestors, nature,
that's
gloom,
right.
power of speech, and just gave them those words and let them go to Wikipedia, they would get one set. But
that's
when
right.
you take those words after reading The Coming, then you have a whole new definition.
That's right.
That was intentional?
That was very intentional. Because one of the things that trauma will do is it will make you make very sharp distinctions between levels of pain and levels of dissension. Like there's a difference between being angry and being infuriated. Right? It makes me even think of the difference between when Black people say that they might say, sweetie, don't do that again. But then they might say, you bet not never. Yeah. See, not never is different.
Yeah.
Y'all see what I mean?
And James Baldwin had this whole piece in his piece about the language is Black isn't. Yeah. Okay. About that look. We all know about that look. See, they were in the bows and they looked at one another and they read the look. But I used to get a look from my grandmother in the choir stand when I was on the back row acting up.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Yes.
And so Daniel, that look ain't enough. If that look ain't enough, the next level is gonna take you out.
I'm sorry. There's some questions on the board before I look at these questions here. There was another character, I don't remember her name, but I want to show you guys the book. This is the book that we're talking about, The Coming. This is it's probably already a #1 bestseller. I would say it is.
It
if
has
it's not, it is.
Well.
It's going to be.
Yeah.
And everybody that's on this feed, you need to put it in your house.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to say, I'm going to read this, but I looked at one of the characters. The one, I can't think of her name. You guys help me. She scarred herself. She was a beautiful girl.
Yes.
She thought that these scars would cause her not to be on the auction block or either be sold. So tell us about that scarred. I like that, and those different type of people that was in the auction, on the auction block. Tell us about her. I can't remember her name, but I know
about API really. Yeah, the thing about API, and it's API if you're a con, right? The other thing about API is she thought she had this brilliant idea, right? That if she would mar herself, then these people wouldn't want her. But of course, what she discovers is that white supremacy wants the consumption of Black flesh all the time. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you bring. It wants Black flesh constantly, which is why somebody Black is always on trial, Somebody Black is always in the news for some Black child is always on their way to the office. Some Black child is always in the back of the police car. So, it's some, in other words, Black flesh is always being called to task for its refusal to honor whiteness, right? And in this case, API was saying, well, then if I scar myself, then they won't touch me. What she did not understand is that the ability to scar herself made them honor her even more, because who could endure that kind of pain? In other words, they were looking for any excuse to touch her. And that's exactly what they found. Right? I just think I think it's absolutely profound. You know, there are many instances, and that's one of them, when I was writing this book, where I literally, and I mean no lie, I stood up in my living room and I said, God damn. God. Literally. No, literally. I just walked around saying, God almighty, my God, what have these people done?
My mother's translation would be, do Jesus. Do Jesus.
Do Jesus. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And the crime, and I'll say this, and then I'll get you, Gloria. You know what the real crime is, which is why I wrote this book? That most Black children don't see the unmitigated genius of their own ancestors in simply surviving their planned destruction. The immeasurable genius. I don't mean just the fact that you survived. The immeasurable genius of an ancient mama who played like she loved cooking. You know, people still think ancient mama really loved to cook. She pulled off the greatest coup of the century. She hated cooking. She wanted proximity to the food in order that she might participate in her people's survival. Ooh, y'all better let me get off this. Listen. Go ahead, Gloria.
So, I don't know how much more time we have. How much more time do we have?
Listen, we're gonna roll. Let's
okay, good. Okay, good. So this is the part. I want you to talk about this. And we talked about it briefly. And I think Sister Georgeanne said something about Atiba. He said they were hungry for obedient Black flesh. They were hungry for obedient Black flesh. So he gave it to them.
We talked about that, yes.
He knew what to do. This is what you were talking about in terms of Angela, right? He learned what they rejected and what they hated most. So unlike before, he wore the look of sympathy. Then he goes on to say, all they sought was his compliance, his acquiescence. So Atiba yielded.
He yielded. In other words, and here's the part most people miss, he comes from the trickster tradition.
Yes.
That's what they do. Yes.
Right.
That's who he is.
Yeah. And if you come from the trickster tradition, you've got to read, that means you come from a subversive people. You have to be able to read things on 2 or 3 levels at the same time, or either you'll miss the genius of your own blood. You'll misunderstand how your own blood is saving and covering you. Because see, a lot of times in trying to be like white folks, we have achieved it. And in doing so, we gave up levels of sight. Listen.
Okay. Could you tell us, Daniel, I'm sorry, everyone, we have a few more minutes, but could you tell us, Daniel, some of the names, those you gave name, and they had some everybody had a strong character role, whether it was a baby in the womb that was being killed or anything. Everybody just had so much powerful parts. But could you give us, you named a couple of them, but could you give us some of those characters and their makeup?
In fact, you know what I think?
All of them were strong.
Let me tell you what I think I'd like to do for a second. Let me turn to there's a very great ritual these Africans commit on the boat when they are announcing that they have survived, right? They call their names.
Yes.
They shout their names aloud. And I want to, let's see if I can find it real quickly here. I want to read to you some of those names. because that ritual is so powerful. And it's powerful because in calling their names, they're connecting their life force, right, to the life force of the water and to the life force of the air. And as they're calling their names, they're coming forth.
That'd be page 78 or 79?
Yes, ma'am.
79.
Okay.
Got it. Each day after the 63rd, we began to speak our names aloud. It became a collective ritual, a daily roll call, an announcement of the yet living. Someone would beat his planks like a drum and say his own name 3 times. That was the sign. Then the rest of us would join in, beating our planks with our fists and speaking our names in succession. Tabiti! Coyote! Mwangi! Kwesi! Abubakar! Dumi! Atiba! Akbona! Bektimbe! Kamal! Ochink! Shamba! Olurime! Osobie! Ngugi! Azize! Ajani! Sinzile! Nasor! Irasto! Osundwa Gwike! Alatanga! Tafata Ona! Kimati! Tafase! And see, the reason it's important is because you hear it in the register of different people. Because different people have different kinds of voices. But also it's important to and I tell students, it's important to struggle across these names. Some of the students say, well, I can't pronounce them. Stay with me. If you can say Shaliqua, come on, somebody. Come on, somebody.
Yes.
If you can say Quantavious, if you can say Quantavious, you can say Alatanga.
Yeah.
But see, your tongue and your spirit has got to want to say it and want to claim it as your own. But speaking these names is really telling these captors, you brought a human being here. You brought a spirit here. And the day shall come where you will have to reckon for how you treated God in the form of this being.
So the coming is still, to me, it's like the mirror of today. I mean, everything you read sound like I found all of us in here today.
Yes,
there's
ma'am.
no then and now. It's
right
now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because we're running around now with gifts and don't know we have them.
Don't know it. You know, when I'm sorry, Dr. Black, but you know what I did, and Ellen, I'm sorry, I apologize to everybody. But one day in class, it was storming outside, and it was maybe 11:45, and I said, I tell you what, at 12 o'clock it's gonna stop raining. Oh no, Dr. Thomas, it's storming, it's thundering and lightning. I said, no. At 12 o'clock it's gonna stop raining. You don't know nothing. I said, I tell you what, when you leave at 10 minutes at 12, I want you to walk back upstairs, because I'm gonna be sitting right here when it stops raining at 12 o'clock. Because I'm trying to teach them about their gifts. Now, you know it stopped raining at 12 o'clock.
Of course it did.
They said, you don't never have an umbrella. I said, because it doesn't rain where I am. Because me and I say, I don't want rain right now. And so it doesn't rain when I don't want rain. This is what you can't say. But yes, you can. They don't know.
You see the problem? Yes. And the problem is
nobody's teaching them.
That's right. And Black kids have not been taught enough self-love to believe in self-magic.
Yes.
Because if we believe that Native Americans can dance and make it rain, come on, somebody. Come on.
Stop it. You got my
y'all understand what I'm saying?
Evelyn is screaming back there. Stop it.
But if you told them that a rapper got shot, they would have believed that.
Oh, yes.
Because Black destruction is believable. Oh, God, help me.
That is our time. Thank you so much for being here. What would you like for to be our takeaway? Those that are watching, what would you say to them? Again, Dr. Daniel Black, we want to have you back again. Don't Cry for Me. I already got it in our chamber.
Yes, ma'am.
On our shelf. We're looking forward to that. And do what is our takeaway? And I'll show you guys that where you can see that.
You know, I'm gonna defer to my great scholars first, and then I'll answer what I think is a takeaway that I see. Dr. Tenebu, what would you say is the takeaway from this text, or what was the takeaway for you?
There would be another day.
Ooh.
Mm.
Mm, 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 mm.
Mm. Wow. I can't even get up.
Yeah, I'm like, oh God.
Do you want me to answer for him? Hey, Gloria, I can't answer for that because that I'm Ellen.
Yes.
I'm gonna give you a takeaway that's just a general takeaway, and that is that to me, what I got from this, it's today's world. Everything that he wrote in here about what we missed and what had happened was, and our culture and our history, it's today. It's now. We can still look at this and find ourselves between these pages.
That's
like
right.
You said, and when we find ourselves between these pages, then we need to go back and find the rest of us and make sure that we don't leave anybody out.
That's right. That's right. You know, I'm gonna say two things. We might go over a little bit in time, Ellen. So give me a minute.
Okay,
if you don't mind.
sure.
One of the things is I don't think we can leave without talking about Frank for a second.
Mm.
This African who was willing to destroy other Africans, seemingly for European privilege, for European applause.
Double
Right?
pressure.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And of course, through his character, what we learn is anytime you think you pimping the devil, listen, the devil is pimping you. Because the devil is a pimp by nature, by structure. You can't out pimp the pimp. You know? And I just think that's important to say. You're never going to elevate as a Black person if you're willing to sell other Black souls to do it.
Mm.
Never. White people will let you destroy Black people, and then they'll destroy you. Right? And then the second thing that I'm going to say that I think is extremely important, and that is these Africans in this book do not blame white people for their destruction.
Mm.
I have to be honest. That's the thing that really messed me up, Dr. Tenebu. Because I was ready to hate these folks. I was ready to cuss these white folks out. You know what I mean? I was ready. Listen, ready. But the ancestors said no. And it's a deep thing. Because what they're really saying is they weren't that strong.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
And they weren't that strong. They weren't that powerful. The only reason they overwhelmed us is because we were off our game.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Not because they were stronger, but because we weren't paying attention to our own traditions.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody sounded the bell for the ritual, and some of us are like, I ain't going today. Somebody paid college tuition and you didn't go to class. You was off your game.
Come on, Dr. Black.
You're off your game. That was the day you skipped class is the day they introduced the internship that you missed. See, you're off your game. And in other words, what the ancestors are telling us is you cannot obfuscate your own cultural center. You cannot do that and try to become part of somebody else's culture center because their culture was not constructed for you. It was constructed for them. See, we keep trying to change America. The problem is not only is America not going to change, America doesn't want to change because America is working. It's working. It's just not working for you. America is working beautifully. That's why they're not revising it. Listen, y'all don't get me started. We keep begging for revision. Listen, we keep begging, and they keep saying, what's the problem?
This works for us. What's your problem?
This is marvelous. In fact, you know what they tell us? No, don't change anything. They tell us, run for office yourself. See, what we're saying is we want to change the structure. We want to change the system. You know what they're saying? No, just get in it.
Uh-huh.
Because what they know is, regardless of who runs the system is going to serve the master.
Yes. Yes, it is. Mm.
You know, so my takeaway, I think, from this book is for us to get clear that our only salvation is in us returning unto the feet of our own ancestors.
Mm.
There is no other place for us to grow. At the feet of our ancestors is where Black seed shall germinate.
Mm.
We need to do more what you did. That's name names.
You got to call.
Oh, yes.
That's what Gloria said. Absolutely.
We have not named names. I know Catherine Meeks over at the Epsilon Center, Dr. Meeks, she named names of the lynching people. They named names down in Montgomery. They named names, but we don't name enough names.
That's absolutely right.
The names are going to be named. We have to name them, like you said.
That's right. That's right. And that's what
and
I did.
We have to do as he did. You know, we have to
get some names, some people to name them.
Voice.
I have one more thing for everyone on the panel before we leave. As you guys were speaking, I was thinking about history as we know now, meaning that since they had to bring things down because of the slave names and what happened in our pandemic on changing history, like moving down the monuments and different things like that. So that's what I'm talking about. What is the history of what will the history books look like now? So that's what I want to just throw to you guys, and we'll just walk that out. And I thought about that. Okay, this is my own personal opinion, guys. I don't think, and I know I'm probably getting ready to get shot down now. I don't think erasing what happened will make things change, because you got to say, oh, it used to be a red house down there and so and so, so and so. The memory is still there and the history is still there. So what are you going to tell them when those blank spots are not there that used to be there? How we're going to rewrite that history to this generation now that they removed monuments, changed everything, because of, we already knew what it stand for. We already knew when we looked at it that was the Confederate things and different things like that. So now things have been moved. Monuments in my area, the school names that used to be slavery names, that's changed. One of our schools, our elementary schools, used to be, it was in the history. So that's what I'm saying. I hope I don't sound scattered, but how does that look like? You know what I'm saying?
I think two things. I think one thing is there was a day 50 years ago when we took Black children to Black institutions, things like the church. See, there are things that the church taught that no school taught, no school was committed to teaching, no school was going to teach it. Right. And yet, those things we learned in the church saved us as Black people. Right? Like when I get in trouble, I don't think of George Washington. When I get in trouble, I don't think of Abraham Lincoln. Right? When I get in trouble, I sing, "Pass me not, oh gentle Savior." But that was from Black church.
Yes.
My grandmother used to say, "Don't find yourself in trouble without a song." I understand that, but no school was committed to that. So what I'm saying is Black institution, the point of Black institution, as Gloria was saying a moment ago, is to give us the things that save Blackness. We have to stop asking white people and white institutions to save Blackness.
Yes.
Black institutions will save Blackness if it's going to happen at all. Even Black schools. Black schools is where you learn, lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. I'm not looking for Georgia State to teach that. That's why you pay extra money for me to teach it to you.
Yeah.
Right? Or for Dr. Thomas to teach it to you, or for Dr. Tenebu to teach it to you. In other words, Black institutions have a particular calling to instill in Black minds and in Black bodies those things that will sustain Blackness in the difficult hour. That is the job of Black institutions. And if you don't take your children to any Black institutions, your children don't go to a Black school, they don't go to a Black church, your children are going to be in Black trouble.
That's exactly right.
They're going to be in trouble. They're going to be in trouble. Black barbershops,
Mhm.
whatever it is. You know, Sunday school.
Mhm.
You know, it's deep. When I was a kid, I remember telling my father one time, I said, Daddy, I was a reader. My father wasn't a reader and all that. I said, Daddy, I don't know if I really believe in God. Daddy said, that's fine. Put your clothes on.
Mhm. Mhm.
Which means we're going to this church house. In fact, you might hate God, but we're going to this church house. Because what they were doing was planting some seeds in you that you didn't even know you were going to need. But woe unto the person who gets grown looking for a harvest and you don't have it.
Mm.
And that is what has happened. I'm not talking about theology. I don't care if you think Jesus is the Son of God. I don't care about none of that. I'm talking about the culture
Easter
of what
speech.
Black church does.
The Easter speech.
The Easter speeches. And that's right. That's right. And not even so much the speech itself, the confidence it taught.
That's exactly right. You had to stand on that stage.
You got to stand up. You got to stand. And they'd be in the back of the church saying, speak up, baby. Or if you start crying, they'd say, don't let me get my belt out. Why? Because you're going to do this speech.
Mhm.
You're going to do this speech. But why? Why? Because you know what they're telling you? It is dangerous to be Black in Babylon and you scared to use your voice. It's deadly for you to not have the boldness to speak for yourself in a land of bondage.
Y'all know we can keep you here all day. You have got to come back.
Wow.
Thank you.
Gloria, listen, Gloria, Georgeanne, I love y'all. I love you.
And we love you back.
Ladies, thank you, ladies. Gloria.
Oh my goodness.
Dr.
Georgina,
Georgeanne.
I'd be tearing these names up. I am so
Georgeanne.
sorry.
Georgeanne.
Georgeanne,
Mhm.
and Gloria. Thank you both for coming on here. This has been a great talk.
Amazing.
We can keep you guys forever. Do tell people about us. We're ESP Presents and ESP Book Chats, where we bring page turners your way. We do host authors here. And tonight our guests, actually we have guest and our Daniel Black, who brought guests as well. So we want to thank you and love you guys for coming, because this has been a great chat. Daniel, you always, somebody out in the audience said, in Black trouble.
Right. That's
They
right.
out here talking. So when you get a chance, you get a chance and look at that feed. They're just talking on about that. They really enjoy you. They love you. They
I love them.
enjoyed this night. So thank you guys again. I'm Ellen Sutter of ESP Presents and ESP Book Chat. Daniel Black, Dr. Daniel Black, thank you so much. And Gloria Tenebu.
Very
Yeah,
good.
That's right.
And Dr. Georgeanne Thomas. Thank you guys for being here. And good night to you all. We look forward to seeing you back, Daniel. Thank you for
Thanks,
such
y'all.
so we just have to get to them.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you guys so much.
See y'all.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, Daniel, it's too late now. He's gone. So you ladies just, you guys will know where you see Daniel at. Daniel Black, author Daniel Black, you'll see him there. And also you can look at him on his page. I forgot to ask him where they can find him. But thank you guys for being here. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was awesome.